You know that feeling when you're trying to stay on top of something exploding with new information, like generative AI, for instance?
Oh, yeah, totally.
You're furiously bookmarking articles thinking, okay, I'll get to that later. But then, well, you can't remember where you read that key insight. Or even worse.
You realize you've just read the same basic explanation for the fifth time.
Exactly. It's like trying to drink from a fire hose, right?
Absolutely.
Mm.
And in fields that move as fast as GenAI, I mean, the sheer volume, it just gets overwhelming.
Yeah.
Fast.
You're left wondering not just what's new, but what's actually important, what's still relevant.
Amidst all the noise, yeah.
And that's precisely what we're diving into today. We've got a really fascinating look at one person's answer to this exact challenge.
Ah, okay.
It's detailed in a Medium article by Kelvin Wabin called From Article Overload to Instant Insights, published just this April 2025.
Right. So our goal here in this deep dive is basically to explore Wybin's very practical, sort of hands-on approach. He wasn't just reading about GenAI.
No, he was trying to manage it.
Yeah. Exactly. To understand and actually manage that constant flood of information.
Mm-hmm.
He was trying to build a better way to make sense of it all for himself.
Okay, so let's get into the problem Wybin was facing, because I'm guessing it'll sound pretty familiar to, well, a lot of our listeners.
Something.
He talks about the real frustration of trying to recall where he saw a specific piece of information.
Yeah.
It's like having a brilliant idea, knowing you heard it somewhere, but the mental search bar is just empty.
That's a core issue, definitely. And it leads straight to the second problem, the repetition.
Ugh, tell me about it.
How many times have you read a really detailed explanation of, I don't know, Transformers across like 10 different articles?
Right. It's not just a time sink, but it also makes it harder to spot the actually new ideas when you're constantly wading through the basics again.
Exactly. And then even when you do find something interesting, there's always that nagging question. Is this still current? In Gen AI, things move so incredibly quickly. An insightful article from, what, 6 months ago, maybe even 3, it might already be outdated or missing crucial new context.
So how do you know what's still the cutting edge?
These are the essential questions, the ones that drove Wybin to build his own system.
Yeah.
How can you reliably find novel viewpoints? Where do you quickly find a clear explanation when you need one?
And crucially,
And most importantly, how do you make sure the info you're relying on is up to date, relevant to what's happening now?
so Wybin's solution to this information jungle, was to build his own personal knowledge hub, powered by generative AI, naturally.
Makes sense.
Now, this wasn't just some weekend project. He mentions it grew out of his experience in a Google GenAI intensive course and actually became his Capstone project,
Oh, wow. Okay.
which signals a pretty serious and, thoughtful approach.
Yeah, the fact that it came from a structured learning environment like that Google course, it suggests a very deliberate, informed process. He wasn't just learning about Gen AI,
He was applying it.
right? Applying that knowledge to tackle a very real information management problem he was personally facing.
Now, the first question that probably jumps into your mind, just like it did for me, is, okay, why? Why go to all that effort to build something custom when we already have these incredibly powerful tools like ChatGPT?
That's the immediate question, isn't it?
Yeah, and Wybin actually addresses this head on. His reasoning really sheds light on the limits of these sort of off-the-shelf solutions for this specific kind of deep knowledge management.
That's a critical point because, yeah, on the surface, building your own thing might seem like reinventing the wheel.
Totally.
But Wybin makes a pretty compelling case for why those general-purpose AI tools might not be the perfect fit for building a deeply personalized, constantly evolving knowledge base.
Okay, let's break that down. Start with the free version, ChatGPT using GPT 3.5. Wybin points out it's great for like quick, general questions, right? A brainstorming partner.
Yeah, helpful for that. But when it comes to seriously digging into your own collection of articles and pulling out specific insights, it starts to fall short.
And why is that mainly?
Well, the primary limitations for this specific task are basically twofold. First, you can't upload and process your own documents. Simple as that. You can't feed it your curated article collection directly.
Right, so it doesn't know your stuff.
Exactly. And second, its ability to really understand the nuanced meaning within those documents, what we call semantic retrieval, it's limited. It's built for broad conversations, not necessarily for super deep analysis of specific texts you've saved.
Okay, So then you might think, all right, what about the paid versions, like ChatGPT Plus, or even making your own custom GPTs with the more advanced GPT-4 model?
Mhm.
Those do let you upload files, even create some basic workflows. But Wyben still found them inadequate for his specific goals. What were his main issues there?
Well, even with those more advanced paid options, Wyben highlights a key issue. They often operate as a black box.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
You put your documents in, you ask questions, you get answers back,
Uh-huh.
but you don't really have insight into which specific documents or which parts of them were used to generate that answer and why those bits were seen as the most relevant.
I see. So less transparency.
Exactly. Plus, integrating real-time info from the web to make sure your knowledge is current. That isn't always seamless or a built-in feature, and you have kind of limited control over the precise instructions, the prompts you give the AI.
Gotcha. Okay, so this brings us finally to Wyben's custom assistant. He built it using Google's Gemini API and a technology called ChromaDB.
Right.
And this is where it gets really interesting because he managed to overcome some of those limitations. Can you walk us through the main advantages he found with this custom approach?
Absolutely. So first off, Wyman really emphasizes the control he has over how his documents are added and organized. It's manual ingestion, which might sound like more work,
Okay, less automatic.
but it allows him to structure his knowledge base exactly how it makes sense to him. That's one thing.
Yep.
Secondly, by using ChromaDB, he gets transparent semantic retrieval.
Okay, so that means
It means he can see exactly which parts of his own documents are being used to answer his questions based on their actual meaning. Think of ChromaDB as like a really smart librarian who understands the topic of each paragraph or chunk.
just the keywords.
Precisely. And it can pull the most relevant ones based on your query's meaning.
That transparency seems crucial, doesn't it? It's not just about getting an answer, it's about understanding the foundation of that answer, where it came from in your stuff.
Exactly. Which leads to another big advantage, the ability to dynamically construct what are called few-shot prompts.
Year-shot prompts.
Yeah, so instead of just using preset templates for how he asks questions, his system can actually tailor the prompts it sends to Gemini. It bases them on the specific question asked and the information it just pulled from ChromaDB.
So it's more tailored each time.
Much more nuanced, much more targeted responses possible. Plus, because he's using the Gemini API directly, he can easily bake in live web searching into the process.
The grounding.
Yeah, ensuring his answers are grounded in the most up-to-date information available out there on the web.
Oh, that's huge, especially in a field like GenAI where, like you said, things change practically overnight. So his custom assistant can essentially check if there have been major updates related to a topic since the articles in his personal library were written.
Precisely. And beyond just keeping things current, Wyben designed his system to give him full control over how the information is presented back to him. Needs a quick summary. Fine. Needs detailed citations. He can configure the output.
Nice.
And finally, maybe most importantly from a learning perspective, actually building this system himself gave him this invaluable hands-on understanding of how these underlying technologies, like retrieval augmented generation, R-Bane, how they actually work under the hood.
Right. You learn so much more by doing. Okay, so we get why he built it. Now let's maybe take a peek under the hood. Can you give us a simplified overview of the technical bits and how this assistant actually functions, step by step?
Sure thing. At its core, the system uses Python, the programming language, just to manage the whole workflow, orchestrate everything.
Okay.
Then there's ChromaDB, which serves as this special kind of database, it's a vector database, where the semantic fingerprints, the embeddings of his documents get stored.
Embeddings. We'll come back to those.
Yep. And then there's the Google Gemini API.
Yeah.
That's the powerful language model that actually generates the answers, drawing on both his scored knowledge from ChromaDB and that up-to-date info from the web search.
Okay, makes sense. And what's the typical process when he, say, asks a question to this custom assistant?
Okay, step one is getting his articles into the system. They get processed using some software functions. He mentions extract text and split into chunks, basically. Pull out the text, break it into smaller, manageable chunks.
Right, bite-sized pieces.
Exactly. Then, these chunks are transformed into those numerical representations called embeddings. Think of them as a way for the machine to grasp the meaning of the text.
Like a mathematical summary of the meaning.
Kinda, yeah. These embeddings then get stored in ChromaDB using a command that looks something like collection.add, documents chunks.
So these embeddings are like a secret code that captures the essence of each chunk of text.
That's a good way to put it. Then, when Wyman asks a question, the system converts that question into an embedding too. And it uses ChromaDB to find the stored document chunks whose embeddings are mathematically most similar to the question's embedding.
Ah, finding the closest matches in meaning.
Exactly. It's like the system is finding the pieces of information that are most conceptually related to his query, even if they don't use the exact same words. This is done with something like collection.query, your question here.
That makes total sense, finding info based on meaning, not just matching keywords. Huge difference.
Precisely. So once these relevant chunks are retrieved, the system uses another function, build prompt, he calls it, to construct a specific, tailored prompt for Gemini. This prompt often includes examples of how Wyben wants the answer formatted.
Giving it directions.
Exactly. Then the prompt, along with those relevant text snippets from ChromaDB, gets sent off to Gemini using a command like gemini.generate prompt. And finally, as we mentioned, the system can also tell Gemini, hey, go search the web for the latest on this too, ensuring the answer is as current as possible. He mentioned using web grounding. True for that.
Okay, cool. And Wyben shares an example, right? Asking, what is an embedding in GenAI? The answer he gets seems to really illustrate the power of this.
Yeah, it does. He gets a clear definition, uses a nice analogy vectors as machine language, and explains their role in understanding semantic similarity, making things efficient. It's concise, informative.
What's really insightful, though, is how the system seems to blend the knowledge from his existing documents with the ability to pull in new stuff. His final example, again, on embeddings in GenAI, really shows this off. It doesn't just summarize the fundamental concepts, embeddings represent data numerically, capture semantic relationships, which are still valid.
Right, the core ideas haven't changed.
But then it goes further, doesn't it? It brings in new developments that have maybe popped up since some of his original articles were written.
Exactly. It highlights advancements in areas like multimodal embeddings. Those can understand different types of data together, like text and images. He even mentions examples from Google and OpenAI Sub.
Okay.
It also touches on the significance of contextualized embeddings, like from models such as BERT and GPT, even referencing the original BERT paper. Plus, it points to the growing importance of specialized vector databases like Pinecone or Chroma itself for searching these embeddings efficiently.
Right, those databases are becoming a big deal.
Huge deal. And it mentions the development of more powerful, high-dimensional embedding models like OpenAI's text embedding 3 large for capturing even richer meaning.
And it's not just a laundry list of new tech, right? It also gives valuable considerations.
Yeah, like the importance of picking the right embedding model for your specific task, balancing the trade-offs between accuracy and computational cost, and the strategic use of arrays systems, like his own, to keep knowledge grounded and current.
That ability to synthesize the foundational stuff with the latest updates, it seems like a massive benefit. Saves you tons of effort trying to track and integrate everything manually.
Absolutely. It's a huge time saver and helps you build a more robust understanding.
Wyben gives this really compelling real-world example, too. He asked his system, what are some new approaches in GenAI agent design?
Yeah, the agent design question.
And he explains how the system not only pulled relevant insights from articles he had already saved, but it also surfaced more recent concepts like tree of thoughts, all without him having to manually sift through tons of new sources.
And that really highlights the efficiency he was aiming for. It's exactly the kind of quick, yet thorough knowledge update that, well, I think a lot of us are looking for.
Totally. That example perfectly shows the value for someone, maybe like our listeners, who just wants to stay informed efficiently. The system acts like a personalized research assistant.
Yeah, sifting through all that info, highlighting what's relevant and new, saves you serious time and brain power.
Of course, no system is perfect. Wyben does acknowledge some current limitations. He mentions it can't process visual content within PDFs right now.
Right, images and diagrams are tricky.
And there's a degree of latency, a bit of a delay, sometimes because of that real-time web searching.
Yeah, those are understandable limitations. Analyzing complex visuals, doing live web searches, that stuff inherently takes more processing time and resources. Makes sense.
But he also looks ahead, which is cool. He talks about exciting future possibilities, like adding multimodal search so it could handle images and other media eventually,
That would be powerful.
and improving its ability to automatically summarize the key insights, maybe even automatically tagging new info as it's discovered for better organization down the line.
These potential future steps, they point towards an even more powerful, maybe more autonomous knowledge management tool. Searching across media, intelligent categorization, that would streamline things even further.
So for you, the listener, the big takeaway here isn't necessarily that you need to rush out and build this exact same system tomorrow.
No, probably not.
What's really important, I think, is understanding the potential of creating personalized strategies, maybe using different tools to effectively manage that overwhelming flow of information.